After the death of her husband, my mother-in-law was experiencing great difficulties. For 6 months, she was in constant depression and nervous breakdowns. Before this tragic event, despite her 44 years of age, she looked young and attractive. However, as she neglected to take care of herself, her appearance quickly began to reflect the age on her passport. Watching this transformation was very painful for me. I confess that when I first met Maria, my imagination was captivated by her attractiveness. Her symmetrical facial features and voluptuous figure were certainly pleasing to the eye. She also had a penchant for wearing revealing and provocative outfits, which couldn't help but delight. There were even moments when I was discreetly admiring her. However, everything changed in an instant, and now she wore only dull and careless clothes, not to mention the fact that she did not pay attention to hair, makeup, and other care. Maria had no one closer to her than my wife and I, and it was our responsibility to lift her spirits and restore her vitality. We had to take the initiative and make every effort to rejuvenate my mother-in-law. We just need to introduce her to a respectable gentleman to get her interested in him and start grooming herself. The idea occurred to me. "You're a genius, Frank," my wife exclaimed. "That makes sense. But what man would want to date such an unattractive woman with faded looks?" "Well, let's try a different approach," I suggested. "Take her to a beauty parlor, get her hair done, manicures, and anything else she needs. And you're going to give her money for all that? It's not cheap, is it?" "Yes, I love my mother-in-law, and I don't want her to suffer," I replied. After some thought, I made a decision. When Jennifer told me the approximate cost of caring for my mother-in-law, I was stunned, to say the least. My entire premium had gone toward this endeavor. Feeling a little disappointed, I still nodded in agreement because I had to keep my word. I couldn't understand how my wife had managed to convince Maria to go to the beauty parlor. But the most important thing was that it had happened. Sitting at work, I could only sadly watch significant amounts of money fly out of the account. Apparently, my wife and mother-in-law underwent one after another various procedures. However, as it turned out, it was worth it. When I arrived at my mother-in-law's house, I didn't even recognize her. Instead of the usual simple woman, a captivating mature beauty looked at me with passionate eyes. Jennifer and I had already agreed that I would shower my mother-in-law with compliments, but now I didn't even have to think of anything. My rapturous praise poured into her ears, and for the first time in my life, I saw a person blush with embarrassment right before my eyes. An amazing event took place, and we successfully lifted my mother-in-law's spirits. She continued to blossom with each passing hour, and as we said goodbye to her, we did so with a heavy heart. Saying goodbye to a woman who had rediscovered her vitality was bittersweet, but we also needed time to recuperate and enjoy the solitude. The next day, I was stunned to see a missed call on my phone from Maria. "Frank, hi. Your help yesterday meant a lot to me. Thank you so much. I'd like to meet again today." "Maria, I'd love to do that too. However, today and tomorrow are work days, so it will be a little difficult for my wife and I to get out. If you need anything at the store, I can stop by later in the evening and help you out." "That sounds great." To be honest, it was you alone that I was looking forward to seeing. Maria's cryptic words left me puzzled, but I refrained from inquiring further over the phone. Although her request for help with physical matters made sense, I couldn't understand why she wanted to see me without my wife. The answer was waiting for me at my mother-in-law's house. When I saw her, I was even more stunned. Maria greeted me in a rather short skirt that barely reached her knees and a light blouse boldly unbuttoned across her chest. "Maria, you look amazing. Are you going on a date?" I asked immediately. "No, Frank. It was your words and compliments last night that prompted me to experiment with my appearance. I wanted to know if you were just flattering me yesterday, or if you really like the way I look." "Maria, of course I was sincere. However, I must admit that yesterday you just looked attractive. Today you look incredibly glamorous and bold. "Thank you, Frank. Your words are really kind. But why are we lingering in the hallway? At least let me buy you something tasty." My mother-in-law has perked up. She prepared 3 dishes just to please me. She fiddled around in the kitchen, setting the table and arranging the food on plates. The woman reached for the top shelves of the cabinets, stretching out in front of me like a cat, as if trying to draw my attention away from her figure. It was then that I finally realized that my mother-in-law was making an effort to capture my attention. It looked very spectacular, but also very strange and unusual. In spite of my desire to reciprocate, I was bound by marriage to her daughter. Noticing my bewilderment, she seemed to enjoy it. Just before parting, she came up to me and, before kissing me on the cheek, said bluntly, "Frank, I'm going crazy. I need someone." Her blatant innuendo left me confused. All I could do was nod in agreement, promising to call her the next day. I hurried away, trying to calm my racing heart. I never expected such words to come out of my own mother-in-law's mouth. The most disturbing part was that I was eager for it myself. As a responsible family man, I felt obliged to tell my wife everything. I had always been faithful to her, and the thought of having any kind of relationship with my mother-in-law would be a serious betrayal in her eyes. Jennifer immediately went out onto the balcony, and her anxious mood was reflected in me as well. I decided to leave her alone, letting her gather her thoughts in solitude. When she returned, she made her unusual request. "I know this may seem strange, but I want you to grant her wish. We have put so much effort into helping her overcome her depression." I knew I had to react accordingly, so I smiled and assured her, "You're not weird, you just care a lot about your mother." The next day, I pleased Maria by confirming my arrival at 8 p.m. As I approached the appointed time, my excitement grew, for I had never before imagined such a development, even in my wildest dreams. But now it was going to happen in the real world. The woman met me in an even shorter skirt and a transparent blouse. If I didn't know Maria, I might have assumed I had come home to a slutty girl, but my mother-in-law was nothing like that. She was aware of her attractiveness and knew how to flaunt the virtues of her body. "Would you like some dinner?" she asked, winking at me, clearly having prepared something special. My movements must have resembled those of an inexperienced teenager. We didn't need to exchange unnecessary words. However, I didn't expect my mother-in-law to be so energetic. After it was over and we were catching our breath from the excitement, we felt no discomfort or remorse. Rising from the bed and heading for the kitchen, mother-in-law said, "Now we'll have dinner without any bickering. But don't think of relaxing, because we'll definitely be back in the bedroom later." My wife, who allowed me to visit her mother and relieve her of her depression, had no idea what her mother was capable of. Nor could we have realized what wild side we had awakened in her. However, I realized one thing: it would take more than one night, and I would have to work hard to keep my mother-in-law from becoming depressed again.